Welcome to the podcast. We are Curb Appeal Realty. You can find us on the web at curbappealrealty.net. So today we are going to tackle the home inspection. Dun, dun, dun. It's probably the worst part of selling a home, I'll be honest. But we are here to educate you and to try to make it better. And just know that we have been through many, many inspections and that we know what we're talking about if we give you advice. Like we've said in prior segments, we are in a partnership. We're not here to make you spend more money or make your life miserable. We are here to try to help you sell the home. So you have to understand, I don't care if your home is brand new construction or if you've always been the only owner in your home and you know everything that has been done or wrong with the home. All of those homes have some issues. I just sold a home recently that the woman had it built and she lived there her entire life. And there were still issues found on that home. And she had a meticulous book that she had kept from the very beginning up until this year. And there were still things. You have to keep in mind that a home inspector's job is to find things wrong. That buyer is paying for that home inspection, and they kind of feel slighted if the inspector doesn't find anything. So a home inspection, a good one's going to cost you about $500, and that's for a home inspection and a termite. One of the ones that we do recommend is Heartland Home Inspections, and they are right here in Hendricks County. They're a very good company. We always recommend a few, and then we say you can choose your own if you would like. But they do have very good reviews. They have great reviews online, and we've used them for a really long time, and we've had excellent client feedback. So what is a home inspection? Home inspection is an independent evaluation of a home's condition by a licensed inspector. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but, my uncle, he builds homes for a living or he remodels. Can't he just inspect it? And what do you say to that?
No.
Yes.
Have
not
to be
a
licensed.
good choice.
Yes.
Definitely.
If they're not licensed, then it means nothing in the home buying process or home selling process. So,
Exactly. They have a limited amount of days in the contract to get that home inspection done. And you want a good report with photos that will explain exactly what the problem is to you as the seller. And so if Uncle Joe comes over and, he finds these things for the buyer, that's great, but he's not licensed and it's not going to be enough clout to get those things fixed. Mm-hmm. I understand people want to save money. They don't want to spend a lot of money when they're buying a home. But this is the most valuable purchase that you're going to make probably in your lifetime. And so it is very important that you hire a good licensed inspector, and they're going to find everything. They're going to go in places that you haven't been in probably 20 years. They're going to go in your attic. They're going to go in the crawl space if there's a crawl space. I have a couple of funny stories I'll share with you. I had an inspector a couple different times. He found a live bat hanging in the crawl space. And when that happens, they are a protected species. And then you have to get a professional to remove the bat and clean up its mess. So that was one funny story. And then I had another one. Luckily, I was selling this home to a husband and wife, and the husband actually loved snakes. He had frogs, and he had a whole room that was his amphibian room. And when the inspector inspected the attic, he found a snake skin that was wrapped around the rafters in the attic. And I thought, oh no, but it was because of the type of buyer that I had. He was excited. The wife, not so much, but he assured her that even if the snake was somewhere in the home, he could find it and he would take care of it. So that was interesting. So you never know what is going to be found at a home inspection. I mean, think about it. We are trying to find everything, uncover, everything that's wrong. It could be wrong. So there could be mold. We've had mold in the attic. We've had mold in the crawl space, and that's common in Indiana. Indiana, when it does rain, we're in fall. We're getting ready to probably hit a rainy season. So in Indiana, a lot of times you will have a wet crawl space. I think the thing that comes up the most in Indiana in crawl spaces are wet crawl spaces. So this would be the case where we have a buyer, but I always warn them. If the seller hasn't looked down there since he's put his house in the market or before, chances are it could be wet. If they don't have a sump pump, it could be wet. So I just kind of pre-warn them, don't freak out, because, buyers want to know that the home that they're buying is in good shape.
Right.
But I say, listen, it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a wet crawl space. If they don't have a sump pump, it's been raining heavy, don't freak out. There's lots of companies around that can fix that. And I always reassure them, everything can be fixed for a price. So, I just kind of set the stage before they're going to have that home inspection. They're going to find something. That's what you're paying them for. Right. So, the things that we look for the most are, is the roof in good shape? Is the furnace in good shape? Is the whole HVAC system? How old is that? The hot water heater, mold, of course, is a big deal.
Electrical.
Electrical.
Is a big deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Plumbing.
times it's
Yeah, I was gonna
outdated.
say.
Yep.
Especially with an older home.
Absolutely. So, those are things that just need to be aware of. Sometimes I will share an older home inspection that I have had from a different client with names marked out, just to show them this is an example of what you're going to get. So that they're not shocked. And then, we need to understand that at that pivotal point, hopefully there's a good agent on the other side, because like I said, we're all trying to work together as a team. So if that agent on the other side has prepped that seller, then, the seller's going to expect there's going to be some things that they have to fix. So with that being said, from a seller side, either one of you want to chime in here and talk about how we would prep the home from a seller side if we're going to list it, and let's talk about that.
I would, as the seller, if I know of any things that need fixed or repaired before I list it, that's a good time to go ahead and make those repairs, especially because, like we said, the inspector is going to find it. So then it's something that you can get ahead of.
The shorter the problem list is, obviously the buyer wants to see everything, but I do feel like when it's 25 pages of a lot of things, and they do get freaked out. So if you can eliminate some beforehand, then that's great. And also for FHA, VA loans, little things like peeling paint, holes in siding comes up sometimes. Those are little things that you can fix before you put it on the market. So then the appraisal process for those loans will be a lot easier and smooth sailing, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Even things like gutter extensions. They're going to cost you, less than $10 from Lowe's. You can go put gutter extensions to keep that water away from the home. I see that come up over and over again. So if you can just tell the seller, hey, I see where this downspout is hitting the ground, and it looks like it could just be, trickling water underneath your crawl space. Can you go buy a few gutter extensions? That's going to, in the long run, your buyer won't be freaked out. So we have a lot of helpful hints and tips that we can tell you before you list the home. And a lot of those things are inexpensive. One of the things, though, that I would say, if you have a home, say you inherited a house, and, you still want to get maximum dollar, right? Because, Uncle Joe left you the house. So, you want to get that maximum dollar. And so I always encourage people, if you never lived in the home and you inherited this house, maybe spend the $500 and get a pre-inspection. That way you can go, okay, I see that, Uncle Joe just replaced the roof, but maybe, like those gutter extensions that we talked about, maybe they need to put a sump pump down in the crawl space and get that dried out. Much better, you can actually have a buyer walk away because they get too freaked out about the home inspection. It is so much better if you do that pre-listing inspection. Then you can share that. You can have it laying out and say, we did this, we did this, we did this. It's all been corrected. Here are the receipts. And, sometimes a buyer won't even get an inspection after that. They're just satisfied to know that you have already taken care of that for them, saved them some money, and taken care of the major things that were brought up.
But I will say they do have the right to still have their own, because some people want that extra peace of mind. They want to know that the things that were corrected are actually fixed. And so they get their own inspector in there, which is totally fine. But yeah, so it's just good to know that, even if there is already an inspection, you can always still have your own done.
1,000%. Yes, absolutely. You have choices. So let's see. We talked about from a buyer's perspective. We talked about from a seller's perspective. Let's talk about roofing a little bit. So we've had a lot of hurricanes. We've had a lot of storms blow through. And those have caused insurance to go a little bit higher. So there's been a few changes in insurance companies, and maybe on a podcast we'll have an insurance agent come on and talk to us about that. But we'll just touch on it a little bit. There are sometimes you cannot even get a now if the roof is bad. So, you used to be able to bypass that, and then the buyer would say, I'll take care of it after I buy it. It's fine. I know a roofing contractor. He's a friend of mine. We can do it pretty cheap. All of that. It's really getting tough with these older roofs to even get the loans done or to get them insured. So the insurance companies do not want to insure the roofs because they're too old, and they're saying, well, not a hurricane in our area, but if we get hail damage in our area, then they don't want to be responsible for replacing that roof that was already 20 years old. So, and I can't say that I blame them. That's the insurance companies have to make money too. So we've seen that come up a lot lately. And the first question the insurance companies are going to ask is, how old is the roof? Yeah. And of course, your buyers, they want to know too. So I would say that's another thing that maybe you could get, a home equity line of credit and get that roof taken care of, beforehand, before you're under the gun and you have to get it done within 30 days because, these contractors, they stay busy. And so sometimes it's hard to even get somebody to come out.
Yes.
So that's what I would say, just go ahead and tackle that, if the roof is really old. Or at least have some kind of a game plan. Like, okay, as soon as we get an offer and it's a good offer and it appraises, we're going to get that roofer and get it replaced. Let's see. So let's talk about, either one of you want to chime in about negotiating on your buyer's behalf when you have all those things come up.
Once a buyer has the inspection, they decide what is most important to them, which, varies with everyone. Some people are more comfortable maybe doing repairs themselves. Some people want things done, before they move in. And so then you send the response to the agent. But I would say a big part of it is working with the other agent. Like, you are obviously an advocate for your client and they're an advocate for their client, but like both sides need to be happy in the end. So the important thing is to, be friendly and just try to work it out the best you can so everyone is happy. And that is really, it takes a big part on the listing agent and the buying agent side. So just coming together as a team.
Right. I agree with that. They need to, that's what it is. You both are working for the same goal. The seller wants to sell the house, and then the buyer, you're hoping, is going to be able to go through with the purchase. So both sides have to be comfortable with what has happened with the inspection.
Yeah. So they have to realize that it's a give and take. Like, exactly. Just because you're wanting 25 things doesn't necessarily mean the seller is going to agree to that. So you just have to, kind of be the mediator and just keep just explaining things to them and like, well, you are getting this and they are getting that, just to help everyone understand. So yeah, so everyone can come together and be happy in the end.
Yes, absolutely. And, and those safety issues, if it's electrical, plumbing, obviously we want a roof that works, so it's not leaking. So, those things are really important, but sometimes, and I've explained to buyers in the beginning, you're probably not going to get everything that's going to come up, so I'm still on your team, but we're not going to turn over the report and say, I want every single thing in this report fixed. Right. That's just not reasonable, and it's not going to happen.
And a lot of things are just small maintenance things, and the inspector will let them know that too as well. Like, yeah, there's 75 items on here, but most of them are just little things that just haven't been maintained over the years, so really you want to help them understand that it's really just major, the more major things that you want to ask for.
Well, and that's why I always tell my buyers, because I have buyers always ask me, should I go to the inspection? I always say most definitely, because the inspector will point out all of those maintenance items and they will list them, but they're not items that have to be done or they really affect the value and the safety of the home. But it's good to hear from the inspector because they can give you insight that to those things that are better to be fixed and things that you can wait on because they're more just maintenance issues.
And they'll show you where things are, like the water shutoffs and all of that stuff. So you will learn a lot about the house at the inspection, which is
absolutely. Mm-hmm. I agree. I always encourage my buyers, one of the two, if it's two buyers, need to be there. There's just too much at stake. And, yes, take off work. Take a personal day. You need to be there. Plus, if you get an inspection report with all those pictures, it can be very scary. But if you are there following the inspector around and you heard him say, that is not a big deal, I'm still going to put it in the report, but it's not as big of a deal as,
Because I think they have to put everything on the report. Right. Yes. So they will tell you, like, this is not a big deal. It's, something to watch for in the future. Yes, so yeah. Absolutely.
And another thing too, maybe you didn't ask for a home warranty in the original offer, but now you're in negotiations for your buyer. And let's say he's pointed out that the furnace is still working. He can't really find anything wrong with it, but let's say it's 18 years old. At that point, then we as buyer's agents can go ahead and negotiate into the inspection response a home warranty for you. And that's going to cover you for that first year, and then it's renewable every year after that. So that is a good point, that at that point, then we can ask for that. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to get that for you. So a good agent is going to basically guide you through that process and help you to uncover, what are the major defects, that we need to ask for. And then, there's always that, outside chance that you say you're handy, and I get a lot of guys, especially veterans, they're very handy. Let's say it's nothing that the VA loan is calling for, but there's some things that they want to fix themselves. I always say at that point, then, we can ask and negotiate for some closing costs. So we don't really like, and the lenders don't like money exchanging hands at closing. However, let's say, I think I can handle these things, but I want $4,000, in order to deal with those afterwards. I'm not going to ask for anything. So then we can go back and renegotiate the contract, and we can say, okay, we're going to ask for $4,000 towards the closing costs. That's $4,000 less than what you would have to bring to closing. So that's how that would work. So there's lots of ways to deal with the inspection. You just have to remember it is part of the negotiation process. We're not trying to make it difficult, trying not to make it difficult on a seller. But like I said, if you take our advice up front, we can alleviate a lot of those problems once the inspector comes out.
We are here to look out for you. Absolutely. The entire process, all the way to the closing table.
Absolutely. So that's all the time we have today. and we appreciate you listening to us ramble on about home inspections, but we feel like it's very important. It's a very important part of the process, and we want you to be assured that we know how to negotiate on your behalf and get you through this process.
Oh, 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 oh.